Okay, so I thought I'd take a couple of minutes and just show you how to use the technology buying process cost calculator that you can find on the Kowalah website. Simple drag and drop, and what we've got in here are some industry benchmarks. So let me just walk you through, and then you can tweak them depending on your own scenario. So, according to Sixth Sense's 2024 buyer experience survey, the average size of a buying group is 11 people. So you can think about, the key people that are part of your buying group, the project owner, maybe some admins, maybe some key users. You've got your IT team, maybe you've got legal, maybe you've got someone from procurement, maybe you've got one or two senior executives. You can see how easily you can get up to 11 in the core group and maybe a much larger number that are there on a part-time basis. So maybe we say in your buying group, there are 12 or 13 people. Then also from the Sixth Sense report, the average length of a buying process is 11 and a half months. Now, if you're buying something that's quite a small transactional, it might be a much shorter period of time. If you're buying a brand new ERP system, it might be significantly longer. But the average is 11 and a half months. So drag that around depending on the prevailing process in your own company. Next up, we've got some salaries, or fully loaded salaries, I should say. So for a senior leader, here we can think about the VPs or the senior execs that are sponsoring the project. We're not just talking about their salary, but also taxes and the additional costs of that role. So we've got an estimate here of 300,000 for a senior leader, 225,000 for a manager or director level, and then 150,000 for an individual contributor. Now, that may be different depending on the type of industry you are or where you're based geographically, so you can play around with those. Next up is the number of vendors that are in the shortlist. In the Gartner technology buying survey of last year, said that most companies have an average of 4 vendors on their shortlist when they start discussions with those vendors. So that's what we've got in here as the standard. The average number of vendors considered in the final stages of the buying process, not the total number that you were exploring earlier on. And so maybe you take 5 or 6 through. You can play around with that as you wish. Next up, will you travel to meet vendors or customer references? Long ago, before the pandemic, this would be very, very typical, going off to go and meet a vendor, maybe going to see some customers and see how the technology is being used in their environment. Maybe you're flying off to the vendor's conference over in San Francisco or the UK or wherever that might be. So you can toggle that on or off. Next up, will you be using an external buying consultant? Now, according to the Sixth Sense buyer experience report, 72% of projects, I think it is here, let me go hover over that. Yeah, 72% of buyers engage some form of external consultant, which the survey showed on average doubles the average buying cycle because it just gets more complicated, more people are involved. And here you can now have a slider as to what your estimated cost for that monthly consultant is. And that starts at 10,000, but you can drag it depending on how big the engagement is that you have with that partner. And so all of this calculates what is the estimated cost range of your buying process. And to be clear, this has got nothing to do with the actual product or technology that you end up buying. This is just the cost of you running your buying process. Now, it'll vary, obviously, depending on your own organization, whether you do more or less meetings. But down here, you'll see the assumptions that are based on those selections you made above. Buying group composition of 2 senior leaders, 4 managers, and 7 individual contributors. 7 plus 4 is 11, 12, 13, and that's because we've got 13 up here. If we take that down to 10, then you'll see the number comes down. So this is all based on what you've put up there. The time investment per role over the entire process, an estimate is 30 for the senior leaders, 70 for the managers and directors, and 45 for the individual contributors. Vendor interactions, we've got 5 in our shortlist because we've got 5 in our shortlist. And we're predicting that we're going to have one main demo of an hour and a half per vendor, 2 to 3 additional sessions per vendor. Travel costs, if they're applicable, legal and procurement support, and then external consultant engagement, if applicable. So there you've got the calculations that go towards this estimated cost range. Now, this is a significant expense, and we're not saying that by using Kowalah, you won't have to invest that amount. It is more that if you're going to get all the way to the end of this journey of having committed that amount of spend and then come away with no decision and deciding to stay with what you've got because you haven't got the confidence to make that change, then that is a wasted expense, not only in terms of the raw money, but what could these people have been doing if they weren't spending their time doing this over the course of 11 and a half months? So that is the technology buying process cost calculator. Just go to kowalah.com and click on resources and go to the buying process cost calculator, play around, and I think you'll find it quite surprising, the typical costs that are involved in running an evaluation of any kind of technology.